you're in New York, 9/11 happens, and I'm just wondering if you could paint a picture of how dark it got for you and your family before you pulled the trigger and got on a plane to Boulder.
I mean, I was traumatized. My wife too. We have little kids. I lost good friends. One jumped, and I could not believe that if you were living in New York City that day, you could not believe the towers came down. And in the back of my mind, I already wanted to do something different. So it was very emotional, very tough decision because you're giving up everything.
Ever feel like quitting your job, chasing a dream, or maybe starting your own business? Welcome to Second Act Stories, the podcast about people who've made bold career changes that can help you rethink your own path. I'm your host, Andy Levine.
And I'm Scott Merritt, Andy's co-host today. So, Andy, for today's story, you spoke to a guy by the name of Andrew Pudalov. Did I get that right?
Correct pronunciation.
Perfect.
Very good, Scott.
Great.
Thank you.
Off to a good start. So, Andrew left a really high-paying power position on Wall Street, packed it all up, and headed with his family to Boulder, Colorado. And he had really no idea what was going to come next, or very little idea.
That is correct. As you heard in the opening, September 11th, the attack on the World Trade Center was a traumatic event for Andrew and his family, as it was for a lot of New Yorkers. And they left New York City and headed west, where he ultimately started a company called Rush Bowls. Now, the company specializes in all-natural acai bowls and smoothies, and has over 50 locations across the United States.
Well, for a guy who didn't have a plan, who now has 50 locations, this sounds like it's a successful transition. Now, I love a good entrepreneurial story. I'd like to say I love a good acai bowl, but I've never had one. So
maybe you'll try one after this, Scott.
Well, maybe one of his 50 locations is somewhere nearby and I could check it out.
I think he is in Atlanta. Yes, that'll work.
All right. Well, that's a good excuse for me. So let's hear Andrew's second act story.
I started out asking Andrew about his early career in finance, and in particular, his work as a derivatives trader. I've always heard the phrase derivatives trading, but I've never really understood it. So I asked him for a simple definition.
I think the best way to explain it is exchange of cash flows.
Okay.
One may be a floating rate cash flow, one may be a fixed rate cash flow, and you're exchanging them with some spread and credit element to it because you want to get a fixed rate for 20 years, and right now you're paying a floating rate. That was the simplest form of it. But the smallest trade I ever did was $25 million, right? So they're
These are big
massive
numbers.
Cash flow differentials for institutions, for banks, for whatever it is. So, for instance, if there is debt to be paid and they're worried about interest rate risk, it was a way to hedge that.
That helps.
Okay.
How did you get into this sort of very specialized area?
It was really specialized. No one was doing it. When I started my career, I started at Bear Stearns, and I was a management trainee, which really afforded me the opportunity to really see how one of these banks, a real investment bank, does things. And Bear Stearns at the time was like the hungry bank. They worked harder than everyone else. And they had a lot of really smart people there, and it afforded me an opportunity to learn a lot. I then was recruited to Morgan Stanley for derivatives.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough to learn from some incredibly bright people there. I would say Morgan Stanley, of all the institutions I worked for, was certainly the most educated, most polished of the firms. Not saying the best, but certainly one of the most polished firms I've ever worked for. And it was us versus Goldman Sachs at the time. So,
did you have a particular mentor who sort of brought you along?
No.
Okay.
I wish I did. I had people that I respected immensely. Morgan Stanley, at the time, I really didn't have one. And once you get into that kind of trading environment, it's every man or woman for themselves, right? But it's dog eat dog in many ways. It's not myself against the guy next to me, but it's, hey, I have to generate this revenue or you're out of a job. And this is very specialized, highly mathematical. I'm trading a lot of different things to hedge, whether it's currencies, whether it's futures, whether it's government securities, whether it's credit spreads, whether it's spreads in general. So it really afforded me the opportunity to learn how to trade everything, pretty much.
You go from Morgan Stanley, I'm going to mispronounce this, Credit
Lyonnais.
Credit Lyonnais, French bank, I assume.
Yes.
National Australia Bank, and I assume you're rising up
Yes.
in title, responsibility, that sort of thing. Okay.
And so from Morgan Stanley, I went to Credit Lyonnais. The best part of Credit Lyonnais is it's your responsibilities, right? So in Credit Lyonnais, I had pretty much the short end of the curve I was trading and the Canadian book. And then at Morgan Stanley, I was trading pretty short. I was assisting bigger traders also. And then finally at National Australia Bank, I was trading the whole curve, meaning 0 to 30s. I was global head of the fixed income derivative team. So each step, which is typical in finance at the time, you're getting a bigger bonus, you're taking more responsible if you're good at it, and you're excelling, right? So.
And is this a very high pressure kind of job? I mean, like crazy hours, crazy, I don't know, just crazy.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most pressure jobs there are out there, quite frankly. Okay. And it's not like all of a sudden you work your way into these positions. And to get there, you're working hundreds of hours, not hundreds, 100 hours plus a week.
100 hours a week. Wow.
To get there. Once you're there and
eases
really
off to 80?
Yeah, it drops off quite a bit.
Okay.
Especially when you're like running a desk. But the benefit of that job, besides just monetary benefit, is you're treated like a king. You're the revenue producing for the firm, and a broker could make tens of thousands of dollars per trade with you. So you want to go to a Knick game, sit front row, you go to a Knick game. I could eat at any restaurant that day, have an incredible meal, wine, the best wines in the world, but it's wasted on youth, really, a little bit. But it's insanely highly pressurized job. A lot of people become alcoholics. There's a lot of drug use. It's a tough environment because you're as good as your last trade. There's a lot of pressure to generate revenue, and if you're not, you're out. Like it's cutthroat.
So you mentioned a lot fade out in their mid 30s.
Yeah.
By my count, you're in your late 30s, and something happens, and you decide it's time to do something different. That's really interesting to our audience. Can you talk about that?
Sure. The real trigger on this was 9/11.
Oh, okay.
So I was living in the city with basically a 2-year-old and a brand newborn. I really felt that I got to do something else. I don't want to raise my kids in New York. I'm pretty burnt out, and I want to do something that is really challenging and very different. So when you're in this trading environment, there's no socialization other than some of the other traders. And I really wanted to create a business that I could socialize with people. I really missed that interaction. And it's funny because I'm a pretty quiet guy for the most part, but I really like that interaction. I like interacting with people. And I wanted to move to Boulder, Colorado. I don't know why. I just always loved the West, and Boulder's kind of a unique spot in the country. So I quit my job, and which was really scary. You're living large and you have 2 little kids, and I wanted to do something that I would be really challenged but really different.
You're in New York, 9/11 happens, and I'm just wondering if you could paint a picture of how dark it got for you and your family before you pulled the trigger and got on a plane to Boulder.
I mean, I was traumatized. My wife too. We have little kids. I lost good friends. One jumped, and I could not believe that if you were living in New York City that day, you could not believe the towers came down. And in the back of my mind, I already wanted to do something different. So it was very emotional, very tough decision, because you're giving up everything. You're making big money, and you're saying, okay, I'm done with this.
And it's pretty much burn the boats. I mean, there's no going back.
No going back.
But when you make this decision, I'm going to move to Boulder.
Sure.
And bring my family to Boulder. Did you have any idea what you were going to do in Boulder?
Yeah, I had a buddy that was doing smoothies in Arizona.
Okay.
So I kind of looked at the business. I thought it was an interesting business. I didn't want to do smoothies. I wanted to do more of a meal concept. And no one was doing, when I created bowls, no one was doing bowls. Like, no one was doing anything close to what's out there now, acai and everything else. No one was doing that. So in 2004, I'm like, I'm going to open up a bowl, acai bowl, but it was smoothies and bowls, but 80% of our sales were bowls, and really teach people that these are healthy, nutritious meals to go opposed to a drink. That was really the birth of it. I bought a house, which is crazy. I had no job. I bought a house in May, and I opened the store in August of that 2004.
And had you ever worked in the food industry before? Okay.
No. I'll never forget, because in the beginning it was I hired a couple of people. I was in a college. We were in a college town. I'm right next to CU, and that store is still there today, and it still operates, and it's still right next to CU.
CU being Colorado University?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
I'm mopping the floors, doing everything. Even in the beginning, if I had a takeout order, I might even lock the door, run to deliver the takeout order. I really wanted to learn every aspect of that business. So I really knew. Because it's one thing of creating a business, but if you're going to create a business, you better really know it, right? So I wanted to be in there, especially to see, since it's a kind of a new concept of food, I wanted to see people's reaction. I wanted to see what they liked, what they didn't like. And you have to have a really open mind about it.
You get to Colorado, and you get a storefront. You start setting things up. What was the first year like?
I blocked it out of memory. No, it was really tough, right? Because here I had a huge job. Now I'm mopping floors. I'm trying to make money in any way, teaching people what bowls were, why it's a healthier alternative. It's not glamorous. I think the food industry, opposed to finance, it's a very different arena. And in finance, I would say, it's probably way more educated, the people you're working with, opposed to in the food industry. It's generally less educated, but more passionate, certainly in the food. And I was more used to the financial world. And certainly, even to this day, I always fight myself a little bit in terms of, I'm very curt, and because I'm used to mine, yours, I'm used to that kind of very quick, decisive, short, less verbose mannerisms. So it took me a long time to try and get out of that rhythm.
I asked Andrew about his own eating habits during his formative years.
I was brought up eating pretty healthy. Now, I'm not vegan, having a balanced, healthy diet. Okay. Growing up, we weren't allowed to have any sugar cereals. We weren't allowed to have soda. So we grew up in a healthy environment and being outdoors a lot and just trying to have fun. And in a very driven environment. Like a B wasn't good enough growing up. You had to get an A.
So the first year, maybe the first couple of years, it sounds like it's struggling a bit. It probably is not profitable at the early stages.
It's probably break even, but I was out there on an hourly basis. I was making $1 an hour probably. But I had the sense by the excitement of the people eating the food that I was onto something. And that was really important because I could see it firsthand.
I just want to go back to something you said. On Wall Street, you were the king.
Right.
You were like top of the heap, whatever. Here, you're mopping the floors.
Yeah,
Very difficult adjustment.
extremely,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay. And you're working probably the same hours.
Longer probably.
Okay.
It was a really hard adjustment. I think one of the hardest adjustments I've ever had, because you truly are on top of the world, and then you're doing this. But I think it's one of the best adjustments and healthiest adjustments I ever did for me. Because first of all, you're not on top of the world forever. At least most people aren't, right? So, and second of all, you lose a realistic approach to life, and I felt it's really important to be grounded. And the benefit, I also built a business from scratch in a different arena if no one was doing that type of food at the time, which is really hard and a really, really big accomplishment for me, success or failure. No one talks about the failures, but I would tell you almost every successful person has had failures.
While Andrew tried different business models over the past 20 plus years, the approach that has really worked for Rush Bowls is a franchise model. Today, there are 55 stores across the country, with another 20 new stores set to open in the year ahead.
I like the franchising business model. Even to myself right now, if I was going to start a business, I would look at franchising first. Because one of the things that people don't realize, it's really hard to build a business from scratch. I mean, from trademarks to every aspect of that business. But in franchising really gives you the blueprints for success. And you follow the blueprints, and then hopefully you'll be really successful.
So where is Rush Bowls going today?
Yeah, we're more of a lifestyle brand anyway, and we're going broader and broader. We're very narrow within our product offering, and we wanted to be true to who we are. So we're health food. No sorbets. Most of the companies now that do bowls, they're ice cream with fruit on top. And they're not healthy. They have tons of sugar. But we're always very true to who we are and what we are. And we're fruit and vegetables blended with fruit on top, obviously. But we're a third the calories of most of the competitors out there. And we're really proud because we haven't changed the formulas. So we are really healthy, but we're not preachy. Whatever you want on it's great, but we're going to give you the healthiest product we can. You want Nutella on it, we'll allow you to put Nutella on it. It's not me telling the consumer what they want, but we're going to give you the healthiest base and the healthiest granola and, the best product we can, and you're going to top it how you would like.
Were there skills that you learned on Wall Street that have been helpful in employing them as an entrepreneur?
Definitely. I would say trading in particular is a great lead in to entrepreneurship because it's all dependent on you, your feelings, your expectation of market movements. So I think that in particular was extremely helpful, and also really understand finance. I think a lot of businesses are started without a real understanding of finance, what cash flow is coming in and out, understanding how to deal with that cash flow, how to maximize the business. So I really understood finance. And I think both those elements were extremely valuable to the success of Rush Bowls today.
And you've been at this for 20 years,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah. Talk about from a financial perspective. Did you make more money on Wall Street than you're making as the CEO of Rush Bowls?
So certainly the potential for value is way higher in Rush Bowls, right?
Is there something you own and you can
yeah,
sell?
I own, and down the line, do I sell or take on partners or whatever
Right.
else? So the extreme value of that is way higher. It's also something I created and grew. So there's a different type of reward there. But certainly in Wall Street, you're making a great living. I can't say you're not. But overall, Rush Bowls is much more valuable. I'm going to have a better living longer term and shorter term in many ways. So.
Okay. So what advice would you give to someone who maybe is considering leaving a stable job to start their own business?
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. Simple
Go
advice.
for it, because I think having that opportunity to follow your dreams, You got to follow your dreams. And even if you fail, you'll learn a new trade or learn something different, and I think inherently make you more valuable. You got to go for it. Now, there's a risk tolerance to this all. And I'm not telling everyone quit their job today and not for tomorrow. You have to really figure out what makes sense for you. But if you're borderline and you think you can really make a difference in doing something, I would 100% go for it.
Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. I love a good entrepreneurial success story. Andrew's story, Rush Bowls, just is a perfect fit for that.
It's been a long road for Andrew and Rush Bowls, but he's certainly created a great product and a great company.
Yeah. With 9/11 as the traumatic event that kind of prompted this whole change, I can relate. You can relate. We were both in New York at the time, and we both experienced it in the same way. And I think it's worth mentioning that that's something that really changed people. And anyway, I'll get to the questions that I have for you.
Sounds good.
So Andrew transitioned away from Wall Street, but he didn't transition. He didn't leave Wall Street and go someplace else and do finance, right? He went into retail food, which he had no experience with. So what do you think it was about the experience that he had on Wall Street that made him successful with Rush Bowls?
There's a certain kind of never say die attitude, particularly to Wall Street traders. They just kind of don't accept failure. And that was very much the case of the sense I got from Andrew is, he was going to make this work no matter what came in his way, no matter what problems he hit, no matter what challenges, whatever blockades he hit, he was going to find his way to make this a successful company. And he hit a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, but in the end, 20 plus years later, he's built a really successful company.
I mean, it's amazing. And he had the foresight to kind of see the Acai Bowl movement sort of happen before it happened.
It reminded me of a phrase that I heard from someone else said, find a parade and get in front of it. And that is really what he's done here.
Yeah, I love that. And what's more, so here's kind of the next question, right? What's more is that he didn't just want to open a storefront and that was going to be his life, right? He had this vision, this business model to grow from far more than just a single storefront, which, I mean, that has to kind of be his business background that brought him there.
Yeah, I'll challenge that a little bit, Scott. I don't know how much vision he had when he started this. I think, I don't think he really knew the end destination that he was looking at. He has tried a number of different things in terms of also wholesale, in addition to retail. He's sort of found his way, and he's really found that the franchise system is what has been the most effective approach for him in Rush Bowls.
Yeah, a tough thing to figure out, but I guess if you unlock the code, there's a lot of success that can come from it.
And he has unlocked the code in this regard. I think that's a good wrap for today's episode. We'll share with you all the things we always say at the end, which is we certainly hope you'll keep listening. We hope you will share this podcast with friends and family and others, particularly other people who might be thinking about a career change. We hope you'll keep listening. There are more second act stories just around the corner.